this. The Dow is now down only 29 points after having been down nearly 400. So the markets are rebounding. What is behind all of this? We were heading for a meltdown this morning. Let's bring in Art Hogan, Managing Director for B. Riley, FBR. We also have Tim Courtney. He's the Chief Investment Officer for Exencial. And Brian Nick, he's here as well. He's the Chief Investment Strategist at Nuveen. Used to work at the New York Fed. Art Hogan, why are we coming back?
Yeah, Fridays have had a weird trading pattern over the last couple of weeks, and today's no different. You've got light volume, you've got technology started the run here, and I think you really had a market that tested the 100-day moving average in the S&P 500 on light volume, and I just think that's causing a reversal. We've got a lot in front of us next week, but I think this is one of those times where the market just picked that crazy Friday reversal like we saw for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was asking Siri, why is the market coming back? Tim, give us your hypothesis here.
Yeah, I think, fundamentally the economy is still looking great. By all measures, we should have record earnings by the end of the year. I think, though, when you get up to these valuation levels where we are, which are basically double what we saw maybe 5 or 6 years ago, news just moves markets more. And so things are more serious. Yeah. When you have surprises, the markets are going to move. But fundamentally, we're still sound.
Brian, it looks like we could hit the flat line. We were down just 18 points a second ago. What do you think happens here?
So two mutually exclusive theories. One, possibly that the amount of pushback you're getting from people in the president's party right now is potentially causing the markets to think these tariffs may not go into effect fully. The other theory, and I think the previous answer was right on, is that we're seeing earnings estimates continue to move up. We're up 7% already for the year, so this market looks cheaper than it did by a long shot at the beginning of the year.
We're getting jobs numbers on Friday, guys. Anybody worried? Because Jerome Powell, the new Fed chief, isn't worried about the government overheating, inflation suddenly spiking. Anybody worried about that? Art?
No, I think the jobs number is actually going to be a surprise and a reverse of the last jobs number we had. I think we had storm-related increase in the average hourly wages and a decrease in the hours worked. I think that reverses on both of those. So I think that calms that fear that the wage price pressure is forcing the Fed to do something they shouldn't be doing.
Brian, you've worked at the Fed. Were you surprised that Jerome Powell said, I don't see the economy overheating. I am not worried about spiking interest rates?
Yeah, he definitely gave more of his own personal view than I think a lot of people were expecting, and he hinted, I think, pretty strongly that we're going to be looking at the dots moving up in the March meeting. So that means 4 rate hikes this year, and assuming we don't get any evidence of faster inflation, I think that's about as far as they're going to go.
Well, to interest rates, Brian, are you worried that interest rates might get higher suddenly? Because the 10-year seems to be calmer.
Yeah, maybe a bit higher, but I think, the other thing you're potentially going to see is that inflation is not going to be accelerating as quickly as it did in the January employment report, and I think that the Fed is going to do a pretty good job of keeping a lid on expectations.
Guys, it's Friday. The markets are coming back. Give me a sense of a side window trade that you really like that very few people talk about. Tim?
Well, I think we really like consumer-based stocks. We like stocks like Texas Roadhouse and companies like Brunswick. The consumer is in a great spot. Their net worth is at an all-time high. The debt levels and interest rates that they're paying are reasonable. We think that those consumer-based stocks should do well.
Art, you're a big guy who always looks at different side window trades. What have you got?
Yeah, it's a stock. I think the stock right now in the turnaround, we tested the lows. I think that was successful. If we get some good news next week, I think the industrials have a bounce here. And if you want to pick an industrial that no one knows about, it's Carlisle, CSL, one of our favorite mid-cycle industrials.
What do you prefer right now, Brian?
I think it's been interesting to see the small caps have been outperforming in the U.S. the last few sessions. They're less exposed to the international markets and the trade protectionism we're seeing.